Jim Walmsley, you champion, the 2023 winner of UTMB, now the course record holder. Thank you for coming over, buddy, and congratulations. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm actually body-wise, I'm actually feeling really good. So maybe just an indication training was decent, handling the volume that's UTMB, but it's definitely like sinking in and doesn't feel real.
Yeah, I mean, you rode your bike over here, man. I would be immobile if I had just put together the performance you did.
I've always been immobile, but like, and I say every ultra, the recovery is always unique and different.
Yeah.
But so far, this one's off to a good recovery in that it's crazy. I don't know, since Champe Lock, everything's just gotten better.
Yeah.
I know the doping control, at first, they were only giving me water. I'm like, oh no. But then finally they brought in some food. So pretty quickly I was able to get in some calories along with like just slam 4 bottles of water. Cause Jess is like, do not take over 6 hours again at doping control. Cause I have some pretty epically bad time to pee after Western States that has not been great.
It's funny, you know, Katie Scheid was in here for a pre-race interview and I was talking to her about the recovery after Western States building to OCC, and she made the comment that recovery always goes better when the race goes well. So the fact that recovery is off to a good start for you is probably a reflection of deep personal satisfaction of what you were able to achieve yesterday.
Yeah, I think I don't know, anyway, things are off to a good start.
Yeah. Okay. Let's dive into it. First question for you, Jim. When is the Strava going up?
It's up.
No, but I mean like the whole training block.
Oh, backlogging, uploading it.
Yes.
Maybe, or do I don't know.
All right. Well, so here's the thing that I wanted to talk to you about. You know, Ryan was obviously supposed to be there at Worlds shooting you in June. You pulled out because of an ankle injury. Yeah. You've been open about that, but I haven't heard you talk about sort of what happened there, because you may know that like in the circles of professional ultra runners, there was wild speculation of like, Jim, you know, he's hurt. He pulled out of Worlds. Who knows if he's even going to start at UTMB? Tell us all about that period, that injury, how you're able to build back, and you know, to what extent your training was compromised.
So I ended up tearing 2 ligaments and partially tearing 2 and completely tearing 1 ligament, which was really bad. But at the same time, I guess for the tear that I did have, it was about best case scenario, non-intrusive recovery, time off. Mm-hmm. So like, I wouldn't have expected that would be possible. And then it was a very strange ligament that tore. Because I rolled over the top of a rock in a weird way. So my ankle was really compromised to get a lot worse injury if I continued, because my week after, I took 3 days off. I think the second day after that ankle roll, I finally knocked out a bucket list and rode over 100 miles on Zwift because I wasn't running. I wasn't going to run, but I needed some time off for the ankle, but the riding was okay immediately. And so I did that, but then straight back into training thinking that Worlds was still on, not a big deal. But mainly the biggest red flag during it was that I could get the swelling down in my ankle at times, but it was always coming back. Mm-hmm. And it was just something was really irritated more than just got hurt, recovered, good. Like you just need to take it careful and keep going, because that's usually how an ankle roll's been. This one was more something might be worse wrong with it. Yeah. So it was a bad one. And more or less the stability of my ankle was compromised enough that it just wasn't possible to take the risk to run or just continue to train for Worlds. Mm-hmm. And the instability was causing other problems in my lower leg. So, things got shut down to almost a month of zero running. So sometime in May through June, and then just the beginning of June was starting to run again, because you start calculating how long it's going to take just to build up your body.
Were you nervous that it was going to compromise this build towards UTMB?
I mean, at first I thought it was going to compromise nothing, that Worlds was going to go on, training was going to go on. Yeah. And then almost denying it for the longest time and not realizing till June's coming along and just going, it's not ready yet. It's not ready yet. And even doctors were saying like, oh yeah, you could start running. But even myself, I knew it's not reacting good.
Mm-hmm.
If I started right now, I didn't have a good feeling that it would be good. So I actually took another week or two longer than after PT and doctors said to start trying to run because it just still didn't feel right. And then, then it felt right. So I started up slowly. But
does it feel
really
like a blessing
gradually.
at this point? Like that you had that little bit of a blip because it sort of came around at the perfect time to then put in the final block.
I mean, I think it's always really convenient to twist inconveniences or misfortune to fortune.
Yep.
And I think as a competitive or elite mindset, you got to take the misfortune and turn it into a positive. And so this one was not how I would have planned the year, but you look back and you're just like, well, that was a race we skipped, energy we saved, freshness we're coming into this whole block. And I definitely felt more fresh for this UTMB block than years past coming off of racing in June.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the race. By Le Chapeau, you, Tom, Zach had broken away from the pack and established yourself at the front of the race. Tom eventually falls apart after Lac Combal basically drops out in Courmayeur. You and Zach leave Courmayeur in quick succession, maybe separated by a minute or so. Still about a minute at the Bretonne, I think, just from memory. Zach was in here earlier today and he sort of described the moment where he caught you very close to Bonnet. And on your Strava today, you were saying you were sort of fighting some demons there, sort of getting flashbacks of past UTMBs where things started to deteriorate. What was going through your head there?
Well, how fast Zach passed me had me questioning if it was kind of demons or what, or like, was I falling apart or not? And I was very interested before the race on specifically Bretonne to Arnuva. So I actually knew quite a few splits and remembered quite a few times. And I took a split after Bretonne to check, and I didn't run as fast as I would have liked, but I think I was only a minute and a half to less than 2 minutes slower than last year. But last year I pulled away from Killian in that section. Right. So I was like, it's not bad, but I mean, Zach, I wasn't hanging on to his back wheel and like being able to press enough to go with him. So it had me questioning things, but then trying to have some confidence that no, I think things might be okay. And Zach's having a day or he's taking too big of a risk or something. But it seemed like I actually was fortunate to have that data to be able in my head to remember that gave me some confidence that things are okay, stay in there, it's fine. But then before like around more like La Foule and stuff, it went from like having some confidence that things were okay to I think I'm in trouble.
Really? Yeah. Okay, so let's go to La Foule to Champay.
Because it was all management in between. Yep. Like after Zach passing me to.
So with how things played out after the fact, my speculation was, okay, Jim learned his lesson from the couple times where he's dropped Francois and Killian going over the Grand Col Ferret and hammering down off the backside into Switzerland. And
I don't think I've actually ever put a time gap on Francois at UTMB.
Oh, okay. Excuse me.
I've gotten Killian on a gap, but then
I remember, the Killian moment I remember because I was doing the commentary from my basement in the US last year, just after our son was born. And I was freaking out, just like, okay, this is Jim's section going off the backside of Grand Col Ferret, super runnable downhill. Like if he can get time on Killian here, this is really a shot. Obviously it didn't play out that way. And so my instinct was like, oh, he waited till Champay-Lac to hit the gas. Turned out that wasn't the case, but backing up a step, I wanted you to describe the moment with Germain because we were all watching it on the live stream. You definitely weren't looking great, especially compared to Germain and Zach. And when he caught you, it seemed to be the spark that you needed. Take us into that moment.
Yeah. I mean, it was a specific moment because I heard there was around 3 minutes back after La Foule, or maybe at La Foule, 3 minutes. And then as I'm climbing up to Champay-Lac, I heard 1 minute, and then I could see a runner back on the road. I could see it was a tan pair of North Face shorts, but I didn't know who. I was actually thinking it might have been one of the Chinese athletes at first. But then eventually I heard it was a French athlete. I was like, and then it clicked and I'm like, oh, that's got to be Germain. I'm like, oh, cool. He's having a good one. And we've become a bit of friends. And when he became close enough, because there's some switchbacks that we were going up, we had one switchback only between us. So we finally made some eye contact, and just, it actually, I think, fortunate for me, unfortunate for him maybe, but just kind of sparked some positivity that I knew him and he was moving up, and like, wow, he's still in position where he could win.
Yeah.
And so made eye contact, smiled and said salut. And I think he kind of laughed at that. But there was also a bit where I realized he's not moving that much better than me. Like, why am I thinking things are falling apart? Mm-hmm. So there's a bit of like, he looks just as rough as I feel. So let's just try to cling on to him going forward and like just be tough right now. Mm-hmm. And then, that kind of turned things around, combined with like a big reset at Champe Lac.
Talk about that. What was that reset?
Well, in this race, there's Courmayeur and Champe Lac, which are crucial for adjustments basically in the race. And they're two aid stations that come after 6 hours in the dark, sort of stuff. But this one, you're transitioning from night to day. So you can get rid of some of your cold weather gear, some of your heavier headlights. Cause typically I'm carrying like the mandatory gears, like not getting touched, and I have everything in a pack. Yep. So like my main torch is not part of that. Yep. But did that, you switch into a cooler shirt for the daytime temperatures, sunglasses on, hat instead of a beanie. And then it was a chance to get some real food in again, have a little pep talk from Jess. But it was some chips, some cashews, getting in some liquid caffeine. And I saw Germain leaving the aid station. It was just like, I need to go when he's going because I don't have momentum and he does.
Hell yes, dude. So I
was just piggybacking him.
So then you go out of the aid station. You didn't even have your pack on, I recall. You're like running out, sort of putting your pack on.
Yeah, I told Jess I got to go.
Yep. And it was the exact opposite of 2017, where in Champe Lac you spent like an hour or something, and then you
at least 30 minutes.
You left very slowly, and I ended up passing you on the road leaving Champe Lac. You're barely moving. As soon as you hit that tarmac leaving Champe Lac, you started flying, and holy shit, Jim! Like
the legs were there.
If you think about what you did on that climb and descent between Champe Lac and Trient, like that's going to go down in history, bro. Like Zach had 11 minutes on you leaving Champe Lac. Yeah. And then you had like 2 or 3 by the time you entered the aid station at Trient. Like the race was yours at that point.
The momentum shifted.
Yeah. So I watched a replay of you passing Zach, and it didn't seem like there was much opportunity for exchange. I asked Zach about this too, but if there's anything you want to share about that moment of like retaking the lead at UTMB, especially just knowing what's on the line at that point, that's huge stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, no other competitor on the line besides Zach wanted it more and did not want to let a late pass happen. And I think we almost both empathize with each other, where we've had just these a little bit of meltdown or just misfortune late in races and falling apart, and like, you had a chance. And even at one point during the night, I think I was really tempted just to tell Zach, like, if it's not me, I hope it's you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's between the American men. I think at first, you rewind 5-6 years ago, we're all like, I want it to be me. But then now we've all had several tries, and it's like, anyone.
Somebody do it.
Yeah. So I think it's becoming a little bit more of a group pack effort. Yeah. But I mean, last year plus this year, we're having front packs of English speakers of just like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Where when we first got here, the front pack was definitely non-English speakers.
Yep.
So things like that have changed in the recent year, just last year and this year, really.
Yeah.
But the main debate when I could see Zach, and I think we're also both in similar things where we both like front running, and not many times are we actually hunting late.
Yeah.
So we both had some interesting things with that, because I had a gap on Zach a bit after Courmayeur, and he was able to catch back up and pass and have that momentum. But this one, the debate being at that point in the race was to sit and try to conserve and regroup and see if I go later or attack. But no, I think I just went with the intuition and just kept pushing. Like, I don't know how long it's lasting, but I'm going to take this energy right now.
Yeah, man, you looked so good. So then fast forwarding to Valorsine, there was a Goosebumps exchange with you and your good friend, 4-time champion Francois, who was crewing for you there, who said, don't take any risks. Zach has exploded. Germain has exploded.
I didn't believe that for a second, though.
So if there's anything you want to say about that specific spot or your friendship with Francois, just sort of tying the story together before we get to the finish line.
Yeah, definitely a special moment. I think this whole journey has been uniquely shaped by the relationship with Francois, and very special moment to have the luxury to go, you stay strong, you will get this. And basically, like, yeah, if you play conservative from here, you'll be all right. Yeah. Go finish the job. But I'm very fear motivated, and it was we're gonna push until we definitely know. Yeah. So pretty much up to La Flégère was push, and then it was more conservative on the descent, followed by finally maybe the sigh of relief when I finally heard a split from the top of La Flégère at the bottom. I was like, okay, they didn't gain time back, because someone would have had to catch fire at the end. And I knew.
Is that what you were thinking? Because
I believe
you ran the whole way up to the Flégère. Like, I've never seen anybody do that.
And I scouted it, and I made the decision that walking is so much, or hike. We're not allowed to say walking. We're power hiking. And the pace difference is so significant because the gradient actually on the change of the course is not steep enough.
Yeah.
It's not steep enough. But I found that it undulates a lot, but most of it, you need to just tap to keep a better pace. And the pace difference would be significantly better to tap. And if you're motivated enough, I think it's just, at that point, it's almost more motivation. No one's able to do it, but
so impressive. I mean, you were the only person who did that. So, dude, then you drop down into town to a hero's welcome.
Yeah. Well, you have to have the football and not fumble it through all the arms trying to tackle you.
I mean, take us into the moment, bro.
Yeah, the high fives are hard to run through. And it started like almost 2 miles, at least a mile out from the finish. You just start getting a tunnel of people wanting high fives. And when you're doing 2 high fives on each side, it just kills your part of like, so, but there's so much, and everybody's there to like just have this ambiance and excitement for the first finishers of UTMB. So, in our sport, there's nothing like it.
I know, it's amazing.
And there's a couple sports that have some events like this, but UTMB, it's exploded. Yeah. I mean, we've seen it in our careers from where we started. I mean, this is big.
Yeah.
It's truly on a spectacular world level of like, compared to other sports ambiance, like it's crazy.
Yeah. Dude, I'm cognizant of the fact you have to get to the awards ceremony here pretty soon. So
French time.
French time. Okay.
C'est bon.
So, I mean, there was clearly, it was emotional at the finish line, and I'm sure it's like barely settling in now, but like you and Jess flipped your lives upside down to chase this goal. What does it feel like now that it's done? I mean, You freaking did it, man.
Well,
and
it's not done. I mean, France has grown on us more that we would like to spend more time here.
You know what I mean?
There's a nice end of the chapter.
Remember last time you were on the podcast, you said, I'm viewing this as a 2-year project.
Yeah.
UTMB. And it took 2 years. It's a storybook.
Well, the stress was still really high it wasn't just training out here. It's technically we're immigrating because we're staying here long enough. We need to do legal paperwork to stay here longer and figure things out. So there was a lot of like just baseline stress that after UTMB last year, we still had this level of stress that we could sense that we thought it was just the race, but it was actually still not being good enough at speaking French and not having everything figured out. So
now with the UTMB championship, they should elect you to parliament at this point. I'm sure they will be giving you permanent residency, if not make you president of the country.
Yeah, we're hoping to split time a little more between the US and France. The outdoor access here of like where we live and being able to run from the door and activities from skiing to running, trail running, it's hard to compare it in the US. I mean, just the reality is like in the US for places that are that established, it's just unaffordable. Yeah. So here it's more affordable.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So you did it, man. And we're so happy for you. And we're so proud of you. All of us who have been around the sport for a long time, been able to watch this amazing career you've had, and adding this.
Kind of a cool exchange with Scott Jurek, even almost like seemed like he had a sigh of relief of like, what? And he's like, someone had to get it done eventually. Yeah. And it's just like,
he talked
that's pretty cool.
He talked on the broadcast about how James Bonnet reached out to him and asked him to have a conversation with you after you famously missed the turn and got lost.
I remember that.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so cool. And man, like
also my whole finish too, everybody's like, oh, good job. You did it. And then I was talking with some friends just this morning. I'm like, people can't say that. Like are they just forgetting I'm the guy that like missed the wrong turn at the end of Western States? Like, it's not done till it's done. So yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So I'd hate to ask you about what's next, but I read the Trail Runner article that you did with Brian Metzler before the race, and you made it clear that you have ambitions to return to Western States.
That's the idea right now.
But that would require you to probably either go to Nice next month to run the 100K, or maybe go to Javelina. Yeah, maybe go to Javelina.
It wouldn't be Javelina, because Javelina it's 2 months away, so all of a sudden it's another training block.
Yeah.
Where Nice, the idea would be just recover a little bit of like not so much fitness, but just some good feelings in training, and then you just race again and just hope. Mm-hmm. And then the other, well, I'd have to make more plans if Nice didn't happen. Yeah. But I'm not going to throw out any other options. But that's an idea right now, because Jess has really made a big sacrifice of. She's missed a lot of her community back in Flag to train with and run with, and more isolation, and like at least my move has been more goal oriented and my own personal ambitions, but she's really made a bigger sacrifice in that. And so next year the plans to spend more time back in Flagstaff at the beginning of the year, and so yeah, might as well try to make some races around some of that. I'm glad you mentioned that about Jess. And I was chatting with her last night at the Hoka party, also just sort of shaking my head and just basically saying, oh my God, you guys did it. Holy smokes. And I'm sure this feels like as much a win for her as it does for you. I mean, she's nailed the crew all day too. Like it's just a direct contribute like to being faster on the day that matters. Well, Jim, I could chat with you for hours. You got to be at the award ceremony literally in 3 minutes. So we're going to let you go, but congratulations on winning the UTMB, and thanks for making the time. Appreciate it, Debo.